What's up, BookTube? Sandy Golston back here, and it has been a minute, but I am back recording a video feature here today. And what I have in store for you is a moderately busy month of April 2021 that I am getting ready to wrap up. So that's coming up next. So first up, I want to talk about a book that I've had on my shelf for quite a long time, or at least one of my shelves for quite a long time. And actually it's 3 books I've had on my shelf, and I've actually read 2 of them in the month of April, and that is the Truly Devious series. And I started out finally with the first book in the series, Truly Devious, and it is, there's a lot about this book that I was really excited about because it does take place at a school, at a boarding school, an elite prep school. And so that really excited me. You have a murder mystery, you have dual timelines, so a lot going on here. And I have to tell you that I really got into this book in ways that I had not anticipated, and I really started to like the main character, Stevie Bell. It reminds me of the kind of characters that I usually draw in my writing, and so that helped get me into it. And so once I started reading Truly Devious, I got into it, and even though it had the dual timelines and sort of like historical and contemporary fiction all wrapped up into one, I really got into it. One thing that I was really happy about with this particular series is that the individual books, they stand alone within a series, if that makes sense to you. So in other words, they don't leave you with a ridiculous cliffhanger at the end where it's like you know, it's like the old Batman TV show. Tune in next time, same bat time, same bat channel to find out what actually happened. You don't have to worry about that in this. They actually, the books, again, stand alone within the series. So I really enjoyed Truly Devious. Glad I got started with this one. This was one of my favorite reads for the month of April 2021. I'm gonna jump a little bit out of order here, but I'm gonna do so just for the sake of riding the momentum of the Truly Devious. And I'm gonna go with The Vanishing Stair, which is book 2 in the Truly Devious series. And I really liked where this one kept going. And again, it kind of stands alone within the series, but it continues to follow Stevie Bell and the adventures going on as Stevie Bell is recruited back to the school, and it kicks off another mystery. And it just was, there's like this tug of war for Stevie Bell in terms of coming back to Ellingham, and so I was really excited about this. And again, it continues with the storylines, and you have like a politician that's an interesting character in this story, and I think some people will see the politician and they will probably recognize this politician in comparison to a real politician. So that's as far as I'll go with that, because some people are weird about politics, so you know, to each their own. But The Vanishing Stair, great follow-up to Truly Devious, and again, I'm so glad I got into this series. I've really enjoyed it, and I can't wait to read book 3 in the series. And then I also have pre-ordered the next in the Truly Devious series, although I'm told that it kind of, or I've read that it takes a little bit of a different turn, but it still follows the same character. So definitely excited about The Vanishing Stair. Very good sequel to Truly Devious. Next up, I read Ring Shout, and this is a novella that I was really excited about. It takes us back in time, and it tells a story about the Ku Klux Klan, but it does it with kind of a supernatural approach to it that I found really interesting. It's a very short book, so it's really intriguing. I don't want to give too much away, but it was really enjoyable. It was really fast. I actually did it as an audio book, so that was something that was really cool. I might still pick up a physical copy of it because I think there are probably some parts that I want to go ahead and highlight, annotate, or whatever. So I might actually pick up a physical copy of the book, but I definitely enjoyed Ring Shout. It's a book I've seen a lot of people talking about. It has really intriguing cover art, and it was one that I was glad I picked up. I got a Scribd membership, and it was part of that membership, so I was really, it was all the more reason why I was glad to get that audio book membership through Scribd. So not necessarily a paid endorsement, but it was something that did pay dividends for me. And Ring Shout is one that if you're interested in that kind of a storyline with a little bit of the Ku Klux Klan part, race relations, and kind of flipping that, and then adding a supernatural element as well to it. So it just really was a very interesting read, very different than a lot of what I typically read, but I was glad I picked up Ring Shout. Next up is another audiobook that I picked up, and that is Beartown by Fredrik Backman. Now, this is a book that I've been thinking about reading for a long time because it has the sports angle with hockey. It's a translated book into English, and I was really excited about it for initially when I first saw it, and it does have a sequel, by the way, that I do want to get into at some point. But as I started reading Beartown, or I guess listening to Beartown, as I did do it again as an audiobook, as I started listening to it, I thought, at first, I was a little bit reluctant to jump into it because I thought it was kind of like a story that's been done before and it wasn't going to be as interesting. But I really liked it, and it has to do with a terrible incident that happens, and it involves a youth sports team, and it sets off a lot of things going on in this town, and it kind of really speaks to some social commentaries about the power of a sports team in a small town and how it can uplift a town in one way, and yet create a power imbalance that can lead to some really bad consequences. So I know I'm being vague, but I'm trying not to give too much of it away. But it was really an enjoyable book. I know I haven't talked a lot about stars in the books that I've already talked about here, but I ended up giving it 4 stars. I could have really gone with 5, but I really enjoyed it. It was better than I thought, even though I felt like it was going to be kind of predictable going into it. It wasn't quite as predictable as I thought. It was in some ways, and yet in other ways it was very well written. And so even if it was in some ways kind of predictable, it was still an enjoyable read, although definitely disturbing in some ways in terms of some of the things that happened. But it was definitely a powerful read. Beartown by Fredrik Backman. Next up was The Project by Courtney Summers, and this is a book that kept popping up for me on Amazon, and I kept looking at it, and I think I put it in my cart a few times and I took it out, or I shouldn't say I took it out, I put it, or like whatever the thing is called when you save it for later or whatever, and I did that a couple times, and I kept looking at it, and I finally had a chance to check it out on Scribd as an audiobook, and I listened to it pretty much in one setting, and it was a good story. It has to do with characters, an incident, and a cult-like setting that with a charismatic leader that I found to be really, really interesting. So I was really excited about it. It just sounded really interesting. I think I'll probably end up reading it again. Probably maybe even get a physical copy of it, because I really found it kind of interesting, but I also found myself wanting to maybe check it out again. Sometimes if I'm doing an audiobook and I'm distracted, I don't pick up as much, but I did go back and listen to some parts later just to make sure that it was soaking in the way I wanted it to soak in. But it was definitely a good book. I was glad I picked it up, and I don't know why exactly. I can't totally explain why I was hesitant initially to pick it up, but eventually I did pick it up, and I was glad that I did. So definitely one you might want to check out if that's your kind of vibe. Check out the description of that book, and if you are even remotely interested, I would definitely suggest that if it fits into your budget, that maybe you give that one a try. Next up was another audiobook, They Never Learn by Lane Fargo, and that was kind of like a feminist type of a story. It takes place on a college campus, which was kind of interesting to me again. That's one of those things that I like: school campuses, summer camps. You know me. That's kind of the stories that I kind of really get into, and so it was very interesting. I mean, you got to just go and check it out. It's not going to be everybody's cup of tea, but it was interesting enough to keep me hooked. As you have this, man, it's just really hard to explain, but there's this situation that happens, and there's like a person who is a bad person, and each year a bad person is targeted for basically to pay the price for their sins. And it becomes really interesting really right off the rip, and it just continues with good momentum through to the end. It's probably not a book that's for everybody, but it just sounded too interesting for me not to at least check it out. And then once I started with it, it did hold my attention through to the end. So that's usually a pretty good sign of a book, because while I don't always DNF books, I may sometimes tune out, especially if it's an audio book. And in this case, I did not, and it ended up being a pretty interesting book. And you know, I probably didn't rate it as high as maybe some other books I would have rated, but it was interesting, and it might be one that I might be willing to listen to again, just to maybe let it soak in, maybe hear something a little bit different the second time around that I did not hear the first time around. So that'll do it for the month of April, my reading month. It was a pretty good, productive month. I've been in a little bit of a slump in terms of producing videos. I bounced back from my slump in terms of reading a little bit more, and I've also had a big writing project that I'm trying to close the door on. So I'm really right at the very end of that book. I'm wrapping it up. It's well over 90,000 words. I thought it was going to be a little over 80,000, and then life happens and got in the way, and I started to go in a different direction, and then wrapping it up was a little bit harder than I thought it was going to be. And it's one of those books I'll probably have to go back and edit it a little bit more to make it make sense a little bit better. So yeah, sometimes you get toward the end of writing and you just you don't want to rush the end, but you want to end it because you've been married to it for so long. And maybe marriage is not the best way of saying it, especially with my relationship history. But it is a project that I'm bringing to the end, and so I've been a little bit more consumed with that than I have been with actual reading. So I'm hoping to get back with a few more reading projects here in the month of May.